Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
This is our reaction and review for Before Season 1, Episode 10. This is the finale. This is going to be a really fun comment section. I am saying that right from the get-go here.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear what everybody thought of this finale. I mean, personally, I really enjoyed it. This has been a story of grief and sort of going through that and what Eli has gone through to sort of get to this other side of acceptance of his own grief, that not everything has an answer. Sometimes things are more spiritual and how he feels about things. And even if it's not changing him in a way that he's like, oh, I'm a believer in reincarnation and this and that, it feels like he's open to the idea that other people can believe in it. And it is absolutely acceptable for other people to believe in those things and to be open to other people's ideas.
Yeah, I am really prepared for this to be polarizing. I can see a lot of people really liking it. I can see a lot of people really hating it. I loved it. And I will say just a bit of background here. I have a degree in English with a creative writing specialization. Like I've done a lot of writing. And as a writer, one of the things that I really like to do is create stories that leave you having a conversation about things. And yeah, give some sort of ending. Don't just like send people up into the planet or beyond planet Earth like the curse or something like that. Don't do something that's just so abstract. Give closure, but also give thought. And I thought the writing in this finale was really, really great. Yeah, the show has a couple of problems here or there, but this is my favorite episode of Before. I'm coming out of it feeling really, really satisfied that there's just all of this meat and introspective stuff on this bone that we're just gonna sort of gnaw our way through in this video.
But before we get too much further into this video, be sure to join our Patreon. We have a link for you below. We are currently covering Dune Prophecy, and we are going to be in the new year covering 2 shows exclusively over there. We're going to be covering The Pit, which is going to be on Max. It is 15 episodes over 15 hours, sort of like a 24 in the ER. It sounds really exciting. We're pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
We're also going to be covering Prime Target on Apple TV. So if you have Apple TV already, we're going to be covering that as well. And it's sort of this thriller about a mathematician who, you know, evildoers are figuring out sort of his work and are using it for nefarious ways. It sounds really exciting, but we will only be covering those 2 shows exclusively on our Patreon. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined.
Thank you guys. And yeah, Prime Target. Is there a show that is more our bag than everything you
I
just
know,
described?
right? And if for whatever reason you don't have Apple TV at the moment, or you're going to be canceling it and then getting it back again, we are partnered with Apple TV, and we have a Matt and Jess link for you below that if you click that link and you sign up for Apple TV Plus with us, it helps support us here at the channel. You also get to have Apple TV. It's a win-win for everybody. So thank you so much to everyone who has used our link below. It really helps us.
Okay, so what I just think is so excellent about the way in which Before ended is that there's really no wrong answer to however you want to determine this. Like the fate of, I think, Eli and Noah, that is concrete. I think that's basically the same no matter what. I think the question becomes everything that we saw in the snow with the children, with what happened there, with the water of the ice. Is that real? Is that actually happening? Or is that just a fabrication of something that has gone on in Eli's mind?
Yeah, and I think that the show has really left that up to interpretation.
Yes.
And while normally I do like stuff to be mostly wrapped up, I don't want it to be the Yellowstone finale where everything
Yeah.
is absolutely paint by the numbers. You know what's going to happen. You are told everything exactly wrapped up in a bow. I like there to be just a little bit of us being able to kind of think it out for ourselves. Is there reincarnation, or is this something else that is like that transference disorder that he was talking about throughout the whole show, that it's two patients that both have trauma that are being pulled together by a shared trauma, or they're transferring it to each other. It's really left up to interpretation in that way.
Yeah.
But they do tie up some things properly, where it's like at the end, we know that Noah is doing really well,
Yeah.
that since Eli did what he did, took him to the farmhouse, jumped in the lake together, that has cured him. And is that believable? I mean, that's up to everybody, right?
Yeah.
I had a hard time buying completely into it, that bringing him there and putting Noah through this trauma where he's drowning him and then bringing him out and bringing him back to life magically fixed everything. Could it? Sure, I guess so. But for what he was going through, it felt like too quick of a fix for me.
I'm going to try to look at this both abstractly and concretely at the same time, which is incredibly confusing. But okay, here we go. So we know from the very beginning of this show that Noah paid Eli a visit, and
Right.
that's sort of where everything began. Is it just coincidence that that just so happened to become a patient of Eli's? You can say yes, but I think if you're to view this show through the lens that I'm about to try to view this show, that's the most, I don't want to say supernatural, but that's the most abstract thing about it, is that these two people suddenly happen to meet up in this way. But
Fate.
yeah, could be
Could be.
fate. And I think Eli, though, has been struggling with the idea of everything that happened to Lynn. And I think he's been trying to figure out a way to deal with it. But I think he sees something in Noah and what Noah is going through that reminds him of his past struggles. We still have to remember that a lot of the important conversations on this show between Eli and Noah happened when nobody else is around. So
Right.
there's a lot of potential here in that a lot of things that we might have saw may not have actually really happened. And I think that this entire story of before is about, I don't want to call it a hero's journey, but it is this epic quest for Eli to sort of understand what he's going through, to get to the root of the problem, and even things that he has sometimes forgotten. And sometimes we attach meanings to things where we don't think meaning is, such as a farmhouse. And it might just be that this is sort of the central nexus of everything that Eli is feeling. And it might also be that the only way to sort of cure this shared trauma that is now converging between these two characters is for there to be a rebirth, that this water is where Lynn died. And we know how horrible that was for Eli. So then can the water be the thing that sort of brings the two back to life? It's sort of this rebirth for the two of them that kind of careens into whatever the next chapter is going to be. And yeah, that's a little bit supernatural, but you can try to look at it from a medical perspective as well.
Before may be over, but we do still have a lot of other Apple shows coming here. So be
Yeah.
sure to hit that subscribe button if you are enjoying this video. Okay, so I think that it was fate. I
Mhm.
think that Noah having the trauma that he does happened upon the correct doorstep of somebody that was going to be able to help him. And because Eli was going through what he was going, we saw the flashbacks, he was feeling over what happened with Benjamin, what was going on with the farmhouse, what was going on with Lynn. Oh my God, Judith Light. I had been waiting all season for more Judith Light. She is someone who I just love as an actress. She's iconic. She's just amazing. And man, did she ever give a performance that just had me gripping my heart with her and Eli. It was so beautifully done. Like, just drive up Emmys. Just drive up Emmys to her house. I mean, for reals. Everybody really did a great job in this show.
Yeah.
But I feel like Eli, this is the story of Eli more than it is of him helping Noah. I think in a way, they were helping each other, but I think in a way, Eli was putting more on Noah than Noah already had. It seemed like the more he got close to Eli, the worse he was getting. And
Yeah.
in the end, when it's like, 5 months later, and Eli's sort of giving this wrap up of like, yeah, there was this transference from me to him and him to me, but more Eli to him, that seemed to be getting worse and worse as it was going on, as Eli was going through this journey and as he was really learning about the things that happened to him in his own past with Benjamin, with Lynn, all of this stuff, that he is holding on to all this guilt and trauma himself that he needed to let go. The same as trauma that had happened to Noah that he needed to let go.
This all leads into what I think is the line of the season, and also finally the explanation as to why this show is called Before, which still is not a great title. I think we can say that it's
No.
really hard for people to search for the show. It's
Yes.
really hard to find it. It's not an explanation of what it is, but the line of, if we are to believe that there is an after, then shouldn't we also be able to believe that there is a before? Yeah, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it exactly, but I thought that line was so poignant and so touching because it really brings in this concept of, okay, without even getting super religious here, right? There's a concept of the afterlife that everybody has different interpretations of. And
Mhm.
why can't we think of the idea of a before life? You can call it a reincarnation. You can just call it certain things that are perhaps either in your past, alternate history, sliding doors. Like, what is wrong about believing that idea? And I think for Eli, regardless of whether or not he believes it or we believe it, the idea of him opening the door to the possibility of that this is Mr. Man of Science who was
Mhm.
battling faith for a lot of the show. He's become someone who can see faith and understand faith through this.
Absolutely. Okay, enough of the good stuff, let's drag
All
something.
right, all right.
Here's the thing that I was really struggling with this whole season, and I definitely struggled with the 5 months later, Eli's had some therapies, waking up happy in bed, and he's got his dog and having his tea. I'm just like, where are the consequences for what he did? I mean, is it they're just continuing to wash it away like they did with the worm, where it was like he cut into Noah's head and pulled out nothing,
Mhm.
and he still wasn't taken off the case because it worked, where it actually didn't really work. I mean, Noah got worse and worse and worse as time was going on. Now he's jumped into this ambulance and has taken off with someone else's child, brought him to this lake, drowned him, and then brought him back to life. And it's like, where are the consequences with this? Is it still just, oh, well, it worked, so, pat on the back? How was he not investigated or arrested or something else that would have happened to them? It feels like there was no consequences. It was like 5 months of therapy and here's your tea. No, there should have been some sort of consequences for this.
This is the part I think of Before that it has struggled with the most, is just the idea of where do you impart logic into a show that I think is a lot about the surreal, that's a lot about these existential thoughts, and it's hard to really combine the two. But yeah, there should have been a harsher punishment for Eli. There should have been something where it's like, okay, well, maybe he never works in this profession again, or that's something that eventually we build towards, or maybe he is arrested or something like that. I just think that the creative team really struggled with the idea of how much do we want to punish this guy who is going through all of this deep mental anguish? And if we do, like, how satisfying of an ending is that going to be for people?
He took someone's child and drowned them in the lake.
I understand.
Like, I think it's just
Yeah.
because it's such a serious thing he did. I mean, it was a pretty serious thing he did, cutting into Noah's head
Yeah.
as well. He should have just been taken off the case, not just we'll give you a pass because it worked, and it didn't work. But it was like, okay, I'll try to have some suspension of disbelief for that. But now we're into the second thing he's done, and it's pretty serious. He has taken somebody's child and drowned them in a lake. There has to be actual legal consequences for this. And I think if they had put that in there, maybe even a larger time jump to be like, okay, here were some of the legal consequences that Eli went through with this. Here are some of the emotional, here are some of the spiritual, here's some of the therapy that he's gone through. And now here we are a year later, and, he's doing much better. Not completely better,
Yeah.
because we saw him still see a worm in his own head, but somewhat better. I think that this finale could have easily been like a 10 out of 10 for me. It took me out of the reality of it when this is, yeah, there's not supernatural, but there's spiritual elements to this, which is faith, which is something that's not necessarily tangible. It's something somebody believes
Yeah.
and something that is in their heart and in their soul. But it still is all rooted in reality. So the reality is he took someone's kid and drowned them.
I would be okay, I think, if they did what you suggested. Maybe they just move forward a year, and maybe there's more punishment that comes over the course of the year. That's still satisfying enough to me that I get the scene of Eli, I get the scene of the beloved pug doing its all thing,
You
which I
love that so
I
much.
love pugs. The
I
pug is
know.
can the pug also be nominated for an Emmy alongside
All
Judith Light
right.
and Billy Crystal? No, I think that the finale has some problems when it comes to the tangible perspective of it. I really did enjoy getting to see Noah out there seemingly happy, seemingly normal.
Yes.
After everything we went through with this kid, I'm also just sure that, being a young actor like this and having to play a role like this, it had to be really nice to just be like, oh, I get to act like a kid for 2 minutes at the end of all this. Great.
I've never seen this young actor before,
Yeah.
but he was incredible. That is a very
Yeah.
hard role to keep that up for all 10 episodes like that, where he is just in complete terror and torment like that. He did an excellent
Yeah.
job.
Okay, I'm gonna put a tinfoil hat on
Okay.
here because I'm going to. I think I have just kind of figured out. Okay, maybe why they didn't give Eli a harsher punishment, which he probably should have had.
Season 2?
There you go. Okay, so there's no season 2 that has been confirmed at the time of this recording. I'll be honest, I think it's probably on the fence. I could easily see a world where it doesn't happen. I just think the viewership for the show, it hasn't been up there on the level of like Silo or Bad Sisters, which we're also covering here.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, like some of it I understand that Apple TV Plus just did a tremendously trash job pushing this show and like really promoting this show. And then there were some like early reviews of some people trying to like trash the show and was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's not that great." I'm like, "Did you watch the same show as I did? I mean, this show is great. What are you talking about? It took us on a thrill ride. It was so difficult to really figure out what was going on. Like, is it supernatural? Is it spiritual? Is this really
Yeah.
happening? Is this reincarnation? Oh my God. It was such a thrill ride and it gave a satisfying ending, I feel. So, why was this show not pushed like disclaimer, which, some people have said is good, but I heard it wasn't that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating, especially because they didn't want to, I think, send Eli sound such a hole that he would never be able to help someone again. And I think they want to leave it open so that if they do a season 2, they can bring in a lot of new characters, a new patient. It can be kind of an entirely different story. It's just really funny to me that in between this and shrinking, Apple TV Plus is just the therapy network now that's doing very, very different takes on therapy. I will put it that way.
Yes.
But I'm really glad that, we had before that this was a show that exists. I think regardless of what happens with it, it might end up getting canceled and we don't see anymore. Or,
I hope
it's being
not.
billed as kind of a limited series. So even if they cancel it, they'll just be like, oh, it was always intended to be this. I think it's going to have a good shelf life. I think people years down the road may hear about it, go back, discover it, and maybe they can just have some good conversations that, therapy and healing and trauma is not always a straight line. And, we have to listen and we have to be there in order to really help people and help people understand that. Like, I've struggled with depression a lot over the course of my life. And sometimes it's been hard not having a lot of people be there to listen to that. And I think this show is a reminder of just like how important that is, and just like one person can kind of turn somebody around.
Absolutely. And that bottling it up or not having an outlet,
Mhm.
can really do a lot of damage. And for Eli, he finally was able to find that outlet and be able to move forward on stuff. I also want to
Mhm.
give props to whoever it was that decided to like make that whole farmhouse like
Yeah.
such a horror
I
show.
know.
Somebody out there loves The Shining besides me. They had flooring in this farmhouse that was like almost identical to the carpeting that was in the hotel in The Shining, is like these little octagon shaped pattern on the floor. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it felt like Jack chasing Danny through the maze, except it's through this maze of a farmhouse. It was done so well. Like, I was just like gripped to my seat through that whole farmhouse.
I think that the visual design on this show, they got to cook a little bit throughout the course of it, but I
Yeah,
think they knew that this farmhouse was going to be their apex, that this was
so
the
good.
real climax of this story. So they're just like, let's have a lot of fun here. And I am 100% with you. I think they totally were like, The Shining is a huge inspiration for this.
Yeah, I mean, well, The Shining is easily one of my most favorite movies, and that's so many people. I mean, it's so iconic, and that's also a film that's about mental health
Yeah.
and what happens to a seemingly normal family that's moving into this hotel for the winter. It's a long winter. You're really isolated, cabin fever. What happens to you when you're in this type of a space where there's no one to really talk to except the three people that are in there, and one of them is a child.
Well, like we said at the start of this video, this is going to be a really active comment section because I think
I think so.
there's going to be a lot of opinions about this finale. But regardless of if you love the finale, hated it, thank you so much for being here with us through all of before. We are covering a lot of other Apple TV
Yep.
Plus stuff, Silo, Severance coming out very, very soon. Hit that subscribe button and yeah, support us further. Join our Patreon. We have a link in the description below. Exclusive Dune Prophecy videos are there, and we'll see you here next time.